Okay, so good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Early Career Members Network workshop. I'm thrilled to see so many younger researchers gathered here. As one of your hosts today, it's a pleasure to welcome each of you. My name is Millena Barros, and I am excited to share the stage with my EMN colleagues and co-speakers, Domenica Berardi, Vial, Aleš, Silvia, Simone Zuffa and Breanna, Dixon. And we are also honored to have our panelists, Natasha Yuluru. I'm giving my best. Emma Ismensky, Thomas Pluskau, Jan Castro Gamboa, Peter Doristen, whose experience are crucial to the success of this workshop. So you can scan this QR code and download the slides here. So I'll give you some minutes. Okay? Great. And before we proceed, I'd like to ask, is this anyone first time attend the EMN workshop? If so, could you raise your hands? Oh, that's amazing. So welcome, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today. And now I will call Breanna to present the EMN.
So for those who don't know who we are, the EMN, or the Early Career Members Network, is a subdivision of the Metabolomics Society, and it's sort of for ECRs by ECRs, and the idea is that we sort of, recognize the importance of early career researchers and ensure that your voices are heard in the community, as we know that these voices are sometimes ones that are a bit overlooked and aren't the loudest. So we want to improve on the ECR experience within the metabolomics field, and we run several initiatives throughout the year. Maybe some of you joined in on our virtual networking event a couple of months ago, or were an awardee of one of the travel awards. We also want to help early careers in their career development, which is why we're here today. And if you would like to come along to the EMN reception and quiz night tomorrow night, that will be at 7 p.m. It'll be great for networking, getting to know other people, and also coming to sort of, talk to us and see what we're about. Furthermore, the EMN booth will be in the main reception hall. So yeah, come along, have a chat. In terms of the sort of overview of today, I'll just sort of run you through what that's going to look like. So the sort of main aims are to provide a comprehensive background on strategies for skill identification and development, and to help you effectively communicate your skills and experience on a CV and motivation letter. So we've broken into 3 sections. The first, we'll look at identifying skill sets and improving on them through practical strategies. Also exploring career options and making an informed career decision. Next, we'll move on to section 2, which will be involve learning strategies of self-promotion and then help you with preparing a CV and resume. Lastly, the section 3 will look a little bit different. This will involve a panel discussion with some of the panelists mentioned before, and they'll be sharing their experiences from their own career journeys and sort of acknowledging some of the challenges they face, so hopefully you can learn from them. And just so we have an idea of, I guess, who's in the audience, if you consider the next role you would like to take on, or potentially, where you want to end up in your career, would that be industry or academia? And maybe you could raise your hand if it would be to stay in academia. And then industry. Okay, so we've got a nice sort of 50-50 split. So hopefully the sort of 2 groups, you'll all take something away from what we've got to discuss today. It should be really great. So I'll leave it now to Thomas.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. So we'll start with the first section about planning and seeking skills. So we'll try to give you a background about strategy for skills identification and development. And so we'll like to make this workshop quite interactive. So I will start by asking this question. So according to you, what is the most important skill for an employer? So does anyone has an idea, want to give a word? You can. Louder, if you can. Yeah, yeah. What else?
I'll try that.
Communication, yeah. Attitude, yeah. That's a good one. Okay. So I will give you some answers because we asked the same question to us, to the EMN member, to early career researcher, and so actually, yeah, one of the most 40% of response was communication and management. So yeah, communication seems to be a good one. So we also asked the same question on X, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and yeah, it's quite accurate. We have like the same trend with communication in both social media. For this time, X and LinkedIn are similar. But on the second one, on X was data and computational, and on LinkedIn was more technical and practical skills. And for this question, we also have a lot of data, actually. So we have a study from science, technology, engineering, and mathematics in the UK, like quite recent, from last year. And the question was asked to students, employers, and educators. And so student, for instance, and educator, they had similar response with data analysis, inquiry, and practical skills as well. But the big difference was from employers, with more than 88% about communication. So yes, actually communication is important for employers. There is another interesting study from the American Chemistry Society about non-technical skills, and collaboration and communication seems to be the most important skills for them. So about skills, we'll give some definition. It's quite basic, but it's still interesting to give it. So a skill is supposed to be an ability and expertise to perform some task and to actively, effectively do this task. It involves acquisition of knowledge, know-how, and proficiency through training, practice, or experience. And we can group these skills in different categories. So you know probably soft skills, so about emotional intelligence, communication, adaptability, hard skills. Usually they are more specific to your field of expertise. You have also transferable skills. So we will talk a bit more later. Personal skills about innate ability and character traits, and knowledge-based skills. So it can be acquired through learning and education. And you can have a lot of overlap between this group of skills. So I will define a bit more the almost most important skill, which is transferable skills. And actually, employers are the most interesting in this type of skills that you can learn during your graduate studies, PhD, and even after. And why these skills are important. So usually, like us, probably all of you, ECR generally work on specific projects. So you will be an expert, or you already are an expert on your field. But this expertise is limited to offer to different employers. So that's why transfer skills are important. And so to illustrate this, there is an interesting study as well about a paper published in 2017 in PLOS ONE, a survey about employed PhD, so people who got a PhD, and they rank different type of transfer skills. And so these people are working either in intensive career in research, so they can work in industry, academia, or for government, or they can work also in we call related career, so in administrative, consulting, it can be business development, scientific writing, IP, or regulatory affairs. And so they rank different type of skills from career planning, data analysis, to time management. And it was interesting to note that in the top 5, especially the number 1 was very accurate between all these groups. Time management was the most important for employed PhD. Then it was written communication, interpret information, problem solving, and once again, oral communication. So yeah, it's a good way to illustrate that these transfer skills are important also for employed PhDs. So now the question we have today is, do you know your own skills and how can you identify your skills? So a good tool is to practice the STAR method. I don't know if you already know this one. It's a good method to evaluate your own skills and also to present the skills to an employer during an interview, for instance. So STAR is for 5 categories: situation you have to deal with, the task you were given to, the action you took, what happened as a result of your action, and what you learned for the experience. So to illustrate the STAR method, I will give you one of my personal experience. So I use this one to evaluate my own skill and also during an interview. It was very useful. So the situation I had to deal with, it was last year during my postdoc project. I wanted to develop teaching, science education, and all these skills associated with science popularization. So the task I had with an educational organization, I presented the concept of epidemic to middle school students and to model the propagation of the disease. So the action I used, so I created workshop, games, I presented films to teach scientific concept, very basic concept, and I let the student create their own epidemic. As a result, so the project was about 6-7 months. So we had the help of a writer and student. They invented a story. Of course, they invented a virus to kill everyone in the planet with a zombie-like epidemic. So it was quite funny. But they used the very scientific knowledge they had at the beginning. So they produced a very nice booklet to describe the epidemic with all these concepts. So that was the result. So at the end, the reflection for me, I learned a lot of things. I learned to adapt to different classroom and students. It was quite difficult, actually, to work with a middle school student because we are not used to when we work in a PhD or as a postdoc. I learned to manage my time between this project, which was an extra project, and my research project. And also I learned to communicate science a bit more efficiently to non-experts. So I learned more than I expected. So I can use this method to present to an employer during an interview. Okay, I have these skills. I can adapt myself. I can manage my time, and I can communicate science. So it was useful for me and also during an interview. So to practice the STAR method, we gave you some examples. So with this QR code, if you want to scan it now or even after, you will have different examples of how to use and other example, not only about science education, but many things. So I think it can be very useful, the STAR method. Okay. Everything is scanned. So now I want just to give you an overview of diversity of hard skills and soft skills you can find in 2024. So here there is a list, so it's not exhaustive. You can find a lot of lists about these skills. In LinkedIn you have a lot of different list of skills in science, in metabolomics, or in other things. And I just want to illustrate this diversity of skills with two kind of skills. So advanced data analysis and interpretation, which I think is quite important for us in metabolomics, And also another one, grant writing and fundraising acumen. It's a skill that is more and more important for employer, also in industry and in academia. And so these skills you can also find with a QR code that you probably already scanned. So I will finish this part with some insight on how to improve your skills. So basically, we made 4 categories to improve your skills. So first, set goals. So what is your research project? What is your career project? You want to work in academia, you want to work in industry, so you will have different set goals. And so if you want to work in industry, if you want to have a team, you have to develop management skills. So set goals, it's important. The second one is seeking mentorship. So not only your PI, it can be someone else in your lab, in your institute, but you have a lot of resources online as well, as the WOMIX, the FMS, and the side steps, and we will detail a bit more in the second section about these resources. The third one is get feedback on your work. So it can be by chatting on some MedSoc forum. Also, you have feedback, obviously, when you want to publish some work. And also, you can get feedback from your friends, from your family. Usually, it's like the artists. They give you like very strong feedback about soft skills, so it can be quite interesting. And the last one, always try to improve. So you have a lot of resources online. You can find free courses, you can find tutorials, you can find webinars, and like very nice webinars are EMN webinars that you can find, actually. So you can improve with this one. So I hope it will be interesting for you, and you will have access to all these resources with the QR code. So yeah, if you have any question for the first section, otherwise we can go to the second one.
If anybody has questions, I can also come with the microphone because it's a bit soft. Oh,
here, a question.
There we go.
Thank you so much for the presentation. You mentioned that communication is probably the top most important skill. Can you explain a bit more? Because there's like a wide range of communication. Is it like scientific communication, how you present your data, or is it like, you know, how to communicate between people, how easygoing you are, or like what kind of communications do you think are the most important for employers? Thank you.
Yeah, I will explain a bit more about my own experience about communication. For me, it's, yes, within the team, it can be like if you don't communicate, but you have bad results, you can like lose a lot of time with your PI, or like between like teammates. If you don't have a good communication when you have to work in a in a team, it will be very difficult to advance. And also in an institute or in a company, if you don't communicate well with other like expertise, with like maybe people helping you to write a grant, yeah, it can be very difficult. So yeah, it was about my own experience, this kind of communication. You have a lot of steps.
Any other question for Thomas? Also for the QR code, we're going to leave it at the end of the presentation. So if anybody had problems scanning that, you can still do it later. All of this will be available, so don't worry about that. I know that sometimes camera cannot capture from the back. So.
Okay, thank you. So we'll jump to the second section with Domenica.
Hello. Yeah, just to add on what Silvia also said, if you downloaded the slides at the very beginning, all the QR codes are basically in the handouts that you will have on your device. So yeah, you can also scan the QR codes from that file. Okay, so we are now with section 2, and this is more like yeah, we want to show some ways to effectively communicate skills and how to report them in CV, cover letters, or resume. And this is like a disclaimer, literal disclaimer, just to say that all the advice that you will see here are kind of general information that you can, I mean, of course, like personalize. And so like in the end, the examples that you will see here are, I can say, most probably not the ones that you're going to use, right? Because you are going to personalize them based on the job application that you're applying for. And also another thing that I wanted to say is that we are not super expert in this field. So we are bringing here also our experience based on also the mistakes that we went through. And so, yeah, I really hope that you can also get that from our presentation. Okay, so what do we do first when we want to apply for a job? We need to search for a position, actually. And so in the Twitter survey that we also published, we asked you, how did you find your job offers? And most of you replied that you find your job offer through networkings and collaborations. And this is just to stress the point how important it is to networking, to find collaborations for, looking for like job offers. And like occasions like conferences like these ones are a really good chance to also ask to PIs that you know or employers, potential employers from industries that you know. Just go to them, ask if they have available job position. Don't be shy. That's like a really great opportunity. And we kind of asked the same question also to the board of directors. They are mainly like from academia, but there are also like members from industry. And the results were pretty consistent like with the previous one. So also they actually find their candidates through networkings, through collaborations. So you see, that's super, super important. So again, don't be shy. Go to the PIs that you know and ask them if they have available position, please. And so when you look for a job, there are a couple of things that you want to consider. There is not just the research project, but there are many other things. The country, for example, is not to underestimate. Like you're gonna, I don't know, switch from one culture to another. And that's an important thing to consider because that can have an impact also on the outcomes of your job. So like there are different parameters that you can actually look for and you have to consider. So we asked this question also to you, like what was the first most important aspect that you would consider for a job application? And you answered that for you, the most important thing is research area project. I would personally agree. It's important that you actually do something that you like. So yeah, quite interesting. Like the second most important aspect, it's not really, it's quite difficult to interpret, honestly, from this graph because it seems like if all of them are very important. Lab culture, work-life balance is the ones with the highest score. And so, yeah, this means that, work-life balance is actually very important for most of us. And, and like salary, lab fame, and country, like, personally, I find interesting that country as the lowest score because, like, for me, it's actually quite important. But I mean, of course, we are different. Okay, so once you find you have in mind where you want to go and what you want to do, then the first thing to do is to approach your employer. And usually, you send an email, but in the email, you can't generalize. Oh, it doesn't go on. All right. You want to be specific, so please don't send the same email to everyone. Try to write a different email for each position that you are applying, because they will notice. And show evidence of research. So, like, do your homework. go online, search for the publications that they have published, and show evidence also of what you have done that can sort of match to what they do as well. And keep it simple. This is, for example, one of the mistakes that I personally do. I keep everything very complicated. And yeah, it's a reminder also for me, like keep it simple. And another important thing is your employer is not your friend. So keep the distance, formality, and that's important. Okay, so you send an email, you attach something to that email. You attach a CV or a resume. And here the question, I don't know how many of you know the difference between a CV or a resume, but we're gonna figure it out now. So, usually for positions in academia, a CV is what you want to send. A resume is more for industrial positions. So the main difference is like among these three elements, like the purpose, the content, and the length. So usually CV is really a history of all of your professional accomplishments and achievements, the activities, and so on. So it can be pretty long. There's not a limitation in length. And you want to really write everything. So, I don't know, for example, the title of your dissertation and also like the things that you have discovered in your research project. So you want to be really detailed. While a resume that is usually for industrial positions, for that you want to summarize everything. You don't want to write everything. And that's why a resume is usually short, so 1 to 2 pages. For academia, when you send your CV, usually it's the PI that is going to read that, and that's easy. They know their stuff, right? So, but sometimes for industry, and maybe like the panelists are going to confirm this also, it's not the employer the ones who read your CV, but it could be a computer or someone from the human resources, and they might not know anything about metabolomics and mass spectrometry. So it's important that you use keywords, like the keywords that are present in the job ad, that will make things easier as well. And now, a little bit about the structure of a CV or resume. So there are some must elements, contact information, and also some information about your education, experience, and then something that it's for a resume but not for a CV is the summary of qualifications. And we will go through them in a minute. And then other important things to consider, like to put in a CV, are also like your skills, the ones that Thomas mentioned before, and also like leadership experience. You might not have all of them, and especially like, for example, for undergrads, you might not have lots of publications, and so then you want to stress the point on other elements rather than all of them. Okay, so this is just to give you an idea of how to set a CV. So you have content information. You might put a picture as well, but it really depends on countries. So there are some countries like US, Canada, where you must not have a picture to avoid discriminations, biases, and so on. But then there are some other countries that might allow that. I would personally, like just my opinion, say it's probably better just not to put that. But it is really up to the country where you're applying for. So make sure that you can actually have a picture in your CV. And then other sections, education and experience. Again, based on like if you have actually research experience, for example, if you're undergrad, you might not have lots of research experience. So then stress the point on education. I'm a postdoc, and postdocs, postdoc is not a degree, so it doesn't go into education, but into research experience. And this is, just to let you know. Okay, and this is the summary of qualifications that we have seen before. So it is a summary of who you are and why you are like the perfect employer for the job position that you are applying for. So here you want to really convince the employer about the skills that you have. This is the skills section. It's just an idea about like how you can organize them. And like we work in metabolomics, so it's important also like to mention the instrumentations that we work with and the software as well that we work with. And you can use abbreviations, but make sure to define them before. Because again, as said before, there might be like someone from the human resources reading your CV and they don't know anything about LCMS. They don't know what it means. And yeah, I don't know if you have any questions on this part so far.
There's one, okay.
So you will put the PhD itself in education, not research experience?
Yeah, PhD is a degree.
Okay, so I just also wanted to mention that Domenica and I have most experience in the US, so this is also going to be country specific. But she also mentioned you really need to research your position, so make sure that you do everything that is on the website and what they want. So these are all going to be country specific. So if maybe in your countries you would say PhD is a research experience, then I would list it there. Oh, there's one more question.
Not a question, but a comment. I was just wanting to back up because at least in Europe, some of these guidelines are a little bit different. What we've also done, or what I've done also, my PhD is listed under qualifications, but the time that you've worked on your PhD, which is often with the research institute, that comes in your experience. So it in some ways that one's listed both because you've got the additional context to the qualification as well. Because my PhD was from a different university where I actually worked that time, and this you have to reflect on your CV.
Any other? Oh, there's more.
Thanks. Hi, great presentation. I have a question. At least in Europe, there's a bit of difference between the academic CV and the CV that you prepare when you're finishing your PhD for a grant or for looking for grants. So it's still academic CVs, but it's a bit different whether you're seeking for a postdoc or a position or you're actually submitting that to a grant proposal. And I was just wondering, have you ever done that? How do we follow that? I mean,
I personally never done it, but I'm gonna let somebody else answer to this question.
We can also give it for the panelists. Yeah. We're also gonna have a pretty long discussion, more than half an hour. So if you have a burning question for any of our panelists.
Yeah, but basically, yes, in the end, I've got, I don't know how many versions of my CV by now. So, you know, once you're at a stage where the information is almost the same for both, you can still have the same version, then at some point you'll end up with parallel ones. What I also wanted to say to the unlimited length of CV, please don't do that to us. But what you can do is make sure the most important information is on the first 1 or 2 pages, then put all the details afterwards so that people can read the first 2 pages, get a really good idea, have all the details later if they want, and then if you order your stuff well by sections, you can pretty much blend sections in or out depending where you're sending the CV to. So a lot of the key information is always the same, and then I had it in LaTeX, so I literally just uncommented out some sections, and then sometimes it's a 2-pager, sometimes it's a 3-pager, sometimes it's whatever many of pages they want. We're also, for a lot of our organizations now, required to do narrative CVs, so you actually come up with these short biographies. What is your research aim, things like that. So there's a lot of transition happening in Europe that obviously hasn't got to the NIH yet. Have a look at people, like a lot of us, all of our CVs are online. You can find out my entire life online by now, it's kind of scary. Look at people's CVs, how they sell themselves. This actually shows you, by seeing how different people do it, what you need to do for yourself. This is really helpful. And not just mine, like lots of different people.
Okay, we have another comment.
I just wanted to comment on this, that the skill of quickly and efficiently reformatting your CV is one of the important skills for a successful researcher.
Any other questions for the... Okay, there it is. Yeah, we unfortunately have very little experience with the Asian community, but do you have any other experiences? What was your question?
My question will be quite different because one of the top 5 things that you look for when you apply for a job is the location and also, well, locations in matters. Lab culture. What would be the best way from your experience to know about the lab culture before you apply?
So I can tell you what I did. So I asked my current PI to give me like the emails of all the lab members. So I contacted all of them to get information about them and about like the lab culture, if they like were happy also with the PI and so on. So this is something that you can actually do. So ask your PI the contact details or of the people that are working there. And yeah, that's...
I had also, like, from my experience, I recently switched jobs, and it was quite interesting because I went for a permanent position now, where you really need to think about where you want to go because you don't want to be stuck in a position you don't want. And in academia, it's pretty hard to find a permanent position. So I think it's very important where you go. For me, it was also about what people are not saying about people. So a lot of people are going to be very diplomatic. So if you're going to ask somebody about a specific lab, and they say they're doing really good research, but they don't say they're also a good mentor, maybe that's something that you need to keep in mind. So just listen to what people are not saying. And this is also very dependent on the country, but like we all collaborate. So people are not gonna say, oh, this person is really bad mentor and they're not a good person. Nobody's gonna say that, especially if they don't know you, maybe if you have a very good relationship with someone. But that's also something you should consider. So it's very shiny and nice to go to a lab that has all the biggest publications, but maybe it's not such a nice culture. So it really depends what you want and how long you want to stay there. So just consider that when you're applying as well. Okay, another question.
I'm going to add just another thing. Don't ask just to like contact details of the current lab members, but also the ones that have left, to have an idea of where they are now. Because, like, for example, if they are professors, then it means that the lab gives you lots of opportunity to go on, like, in your career. So that's also, like, another important aspect to consider.
And to add on to that, if you get the chance, really go and visit the lab in person. There is so much more you can tell from an in-person visit than from Zoom meetings, and everything on, like, the lab dynamic, how people are actually communicating with each other, what's really happening. And just having a drink afterwards with some of the lab members. You're going to get lots of information that are hard to get online or sometimes just via email or Zoom meeting.
Yeah, thanks. Also, if they don't want to take you for a drink, that's kind of important for me.
I would also maybe add just that if you don't have a chance to visit the lab, you can also check their social networks, social media. If they, for example, share the success of their lab members, that makes a good indicator that they are trying to push this good culture. Or if they go to, I don't know, hiking and some good activities together, maybe also checking the social media could be nice.
Yeah, just very quickly to add to that, I would strongly encourage you to talk to the other lab members, not necessarily ask the PI for contact details. A lot of them have details on their websites. Go to conferences like this, go to the posters of the young people from the lab. That's where you can actually talk to them. They're always keen to get feedback on their posters anyway. That's where you can actually find out about the experiences. Like, so really not just relying on PIs who are often too busy, but go to the members and, you know, target them and see what it's like. This is really, really important. That's when you find it out.
Okay, great. We're going to move on to the next section. Thank you so much. This is a very important discussion.
Okay, so thanks, Domenica, for giving us this nice start of a section 2. It's giving us some tips on the CVs and resumes. And now we will a little bit come back to the first part, to Toma and to skills and how to connect the skills with your CV and resume. So first, again, we asked the experts of the Metabolomics Society, so either the board of directors or representatives of industry in the network. And we asked them when they are hiring a new person, what preference do you have? Is it the expertise or is it more like the personality fit? So maybe first I can ask in the audience. So please raise your hand. Who do you think that the most important factor is the expertise? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's slowly getting up. So yeah, but it's definitely the minority. So, and who of you think that is more about the personality fit? Okay, so here we have the majority, and also many people from our many our panelists also raise their hand. And both? Okay, so that's the sweet spot, having both. But to kind of solve this, what was the results from our survey? Actually, it was the personality fit. So maybe it's also good information for you that maybe you don't have to be a superstar in the lab and know everything, know how to program and do LCMS and bioinformatics stuff. But maybe if you are a good personality fit and you have a good attitude and you have an attitude to learn new skills and new experience, maybe that's more important than being the expert on everything. So maybe good information for you. But to continue, of course, as we said, you want to somehow present the skills you gained in the research area into your CV. And there are some skills that are very interesting or nice to show, like speaking effectively, writing, solving problems, etc. But it's kind of a problem that you don't just write these words in your CV, right? It doesn't make much of a sense. So how to do it effectively? We have some tips. So maybe try to personalize it and try to be direct and really show the situation where you acquired this skill, or what was the situation that made you or led to learning this skill. So, for example, when you want to mention problem solving, you can state that you helped to troubleshoot some faulty processes, you optimized a specific method, or you established a new method for analysis of something. You solved some gap in the current knowledge. So this would be one example. Next, if you want to mention that you have a lot of collaborations or you are good at managing collaborations, you can specifically say that you worked with some external universities, companies, and what did it yield it? What was the result? It's, for example, some papers, tools, patents, etc. So be specific, because it really shows how did you acquire the skill and how did it lead to. What did it lead to? Next, for example, many of us are mentoring students or mentoring or leading students. Me personally, some bachelor or master students. So I also wanted to highlight it. What are the skills I gained through mentoring and supervising students? So, for example, in my CV, I mentioned how many students I have successfully defended a thesis under my supervision, and, for example, how many of them won some prizes in competitions, travel awards, etc. So again, a specific way to address this skill. Then when you are done writing your CV or resume, you can take a step back and take a look at the whole picture and maybe ask some more questions. So for example, what were my job responsibilities, what skills did I develop, and what decisions did I have to make? And some of these, coming back to the journey you took so far, can maybe bring some more ideas what to add to the CV that really connect the whole picture of your career so far. Okay, then usually there's one more document that is accompanied with a CV or resume, and that is a cover letter or motivational letter. And this document is usually a one-pager, and it's kind of your personal input, your personal motivation. Why are you applying to this job? Why are you the right candidate? And it's kind of your really personal input. So we have some tips for you. You can again, of course, scan the QR codes for some resources, but we have some tips also here mentioned. So as I said, it's a one-pager. Again, as Domenica said, maybe the simpler the better. Don't send a book. And maybe also try to dissect it into several paragraphs, 3 or 4. In the first paragraph, it's good to introduce yourself. How did you find about the job, and why do you think you are the right candidate? Why did you choose this particular laboratory or industry position to apply for? Then in the second or third paragraph, you can focus a little bit more on the relevant qualifications. what skills you have, what expertise you have that will benefit the employer. And to wrap it up in the fourth paragraph, you can express your interest for interview, because it's always the best to have a face-to-face contact, either through Zoom, if it's a long distance, or even better to be personal on one spot, on site. And try to follow up, and a thank you is always good. So that's some info. So I would just maybe ask again, who of you have already written a cover letter or a motivational letter when applying for a position? Can you raise your hand? Okay, almost everybody. Wow. Okay. So it seems it's very typical or usual to ask for the cover letter. So maybe I can also ask our panelists: if you are looking for a new person to join your lab, are you requiring a cover letter?
It's the first thing I read.
Cool.
Yes.
I mean, for me, a formal cover letter is not absolutely necessary. It can be just a part of the email, but it should clearly state why you're interested in this particular science that we do in the lab, and so that's and basically about your background, how you feel that you can contribute to a lab. And that's something that we often don't really pay attention to. When you apply for a job, whether it's in industry, academia, government, the people that are employing you are looking to hire somebody that's going to contribute to whatever they are doing, not trying to help you, basically. And so you got to think, get your mindset to think that way, and think about, how am I going to be able to contribute to that particular program, even if you don't have the skill sets yet. But you should be able to get across how you're going to create a good environment, how you're going to contribute.
Just to add to that, you had it on your slides, why me and why. So both ways, this both ways thing is really important. So exactly what Peter said, it's not just what we can do for you, but what you can do for us, how you see yourself fitting in, because hearing your perspectives on that really makes us aware, okay, you've actually thought about it, and you're like, okay, I've got this gap, I want to come for this reason, and I can offer you this because you don't have it yet. This kind of thing, this is really important.
Natasha, do you want to add something?
Very, very briefly, by reading a cover letter, you can really see how much interest and time a potential employee has dedicated, and how much interest they really have in the position, whether they spend time to just sort of tailor it to the role that they're applying for, and not just sending a generic cover letter that they've used for 10 other applications. And yeah, make sure your personality kind of shines through that cover letter.
Okay. Do you want to read it now? Yes. Okay. So it's 3 seconds, and this is a very good example what not to do.
So I have some positions open, and I just received this email that says, "Hello, sir. I'm willing to apply and work under you." That's it.
So please don't do that.
I also wanted to say that actually in the cover letter it's really important to be specific. I have received literally hundreds of emails saying like, good day, professor, I am an expert in blah, 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 and I think my expertise would really contribute to your research program. Please take me as a postdoc or something like that. So of course it's great that you think your expertise would contribute, but how, why, all these details I want to know. Otherwise it's just a generic email.
Ian, do you want to add something from the Brazilian side?
Hello. Yeah, well, cover letters for us are essential, and the text should be very objective. But, I mean, something that we have discussed a little bit here, I agree with the colleagues, is when you have a team of researchers under your guidance, you don't want someone from the outside to disrupt, the cohesion, the working, environment. This is very important. Otherwise, you can have problems. But cover letters in Brazil are very common. And now we're adopting like this model of telling you a little bit more about yourself. This is something new. So you like to have a little bit of knowledge of the humanity of the people that is going to join your research work.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for your input. So this was from our expert panelists. But if also you, from the audience, from the early career members, you have some questions for the cover letters, motivational letters, just feel free to ask or leave it to the discussion after. Okay, so next, of course, how do you prepare this cover letter? As you have heard, it should be really personal. You should do your research, learn about the lab or the company or the industry position you are going for. Try to learn as much as you can and try to match it with your skills and your experience. Or, of course, you can use ChatGPT, right? Well, we actually asked this question to our experts in the Metabolomic Society. So, what do they think about using ChatGPT to help candidates write CV, resume, on cover letters? So, who do you think? Please raise your hand. Who think that it's a good thing to use ChatGPT? Oh, okay. So it's a good thing to use ChatGPT. Okay, and who of you think it's not a good? It's within limits. Okay. Okay, so I will reveal the results, okay? So the results say that the majority is against it, of using ChatGPT, but we have some mixed responses, of course. As already pointed out, that maybe use it partially, maybe if you have a comment there from panels.
So to me, I think LLMs are going to stay around. And so why not benefit from them in the right way, but be transparent about it. If it helps certainly somebody who's not, let's say, a native English speaker, ChatGPT can really help the language, and just say, hey, I edited this in ChatGPT just for clarity, but here's why I want to join your lab. And that, I think this disclosure is fine. I think there's a general fear of ChatGPT type tools at the moment because they're foreign to people don't know how to evaluate and how to think about it. But I think as long as you're transparent about it, I think it should be okay.
I was going to say, just be aware of the risks. I totally agree with the language because it really helps people prepare. But ChatGPT is known for being super generic and making assumptions that are also completely wrong. And what the advice we were given in the previous one, be specific about the lab. So use ChatGPT to help. Make sure you've proofread it, make sure the examples are correct, and then make sure you add in those extra anecdotes that make it clear it's tuned to the person so that you can know, okay, you've done ChatGPT, but I've gone beyond.
And it goes back to the comment that Tomas made, is you need to be specific. If you just let ChatGPT write your resume and your cover letter, you're not going to be specific. It's going to sound so generic, I will not even look at that. And so, but you can create your draft first and then say, okay, ChatGPT, can you help me improve the grammar and such? And then, that's a useful way of using LLMs.
I'm just going to give a little background from our own experience because EMN also have travel bursaries for every year for the MetSoc conference. And we get a lot of the same answers and sometimes the same exact sentences. So it's very easy to spot when you use ChatGPT. And this is usually for the questions like diversity or how are you going to promote metabolomics and stuff like that. And I know sometimes that this is very boring and you don't know what to write, but it's better to have a few grammar mistakes because we know that this really came from you than just to use ChatGPT and provide like whatever answer it is, because we're not going to read 20 different applications, in this case 40, 80, that sound the same. So really, I think being unique and even with grammar mistakes, it's much better.
I was going to say, I mean, I don't come from Luxembourg. I work in Luxembourg. Language is a big thing. We have at least 5 active languages in our country. We don't reject people if you're struggling with language. So it's like Peter said, if you use ChatGPT to help, disclose it. Because in an interview, it's then really clear if we get an application that is perfect English and it sounds wonderful and you interview someone, they can't say their words. then you will fail at the interview. But if you've been open and transparent about it, like I've got a student right now, English is definitely not her strength. I've put it together with a Spanish student. They do all their work together in Spanish, and then they meet with me in English. And their language improves within a year extremely well. It's like if you got the skill set and the language is your barrier, but you want to learn, this is not a problem. But disclose it, so then we're aware in the interview. We have to structure the interview differently and give you the time to also be able to formulate it. So again, transparency and being specific is really important.
And maybe something that I've experienced, because like I've moved between Europe and the States, and in the States we like everything big. Everything is great. Every recommendation letter is excellent, amazing person, you know. But if you go to Europe and you send somebody a cover letter that says, I have amazing communication skills, that's actually the reaction you're gonna get. So just like think about those things as well. I mean.
Just to add the anecdote there, I mean, the German way of writing a recommendation is this person did their requirement and fulfilled all recommendations. If you send that to an American, it sounds like that person did the bare minimum, absolutely nothing. For German, that's like this person was amazing. So it's like you really have to know the difference in the cultures. It is extremely diverse.
Any other, yeah, we can move on, I think. And then.
Okay, if anybody has a question, you can leave it for discussion after. So thank you so much for your input. Also what Silvia mentioned, that we reviewed some of these motivational letters, and you can notice on a first glance if it's written by AI completely and not changed. And it can even ruin the view when you send a really nice CV, and you can ruin it all by a completely generated cover letter. So you can of course use it, but be personal in the end and use it only as a scaffold. We also have some direct responses because we also left open answers in our survey. So some of the responses we got, for example, to use ChatGPT to write your CV, resume, cover letter, it rarely reflects the candidate's true communications, and that the employers want to know about the candidate, not the ChatGPT model, and that also it accesses your writing skills, your personal output, and your research you've done. So only just few notes. Also, we received some nice tips or some nice opinions from the responses regarding the advice for early career members applying for jobs within the metabolomics field. So we can go through some of these. So be succinct and clear, and explicitly address the criteria mentioned at job application, for example. Then the motivation letter must be written with the lab in mind. So again, it adds to everything that has been said here already. Also, the employers, the PIs, want to feel that you really did your research, you really looked deeply into the position. Important thing is the motivation and curiosity, also the willingness to learn new things, new skills. And what I personally liked was this note: never underestimate yourself. It was, I think, one of the really nice ones. So even if you think you are not completely the best fit, you don't have all of the experience in the world, maybe just try it, be honest, and say that you are willing to learn, and maybe you will succeed. And one comment also saying that you should contact the lab or the position early if you want to move. For example, half a year in advance is a good recommendation. And also trying to reach the person in whose lab you want to work in. Try to reach him personally at a conference or in a I don't know, webinar or something where you can get this contact. Maybe he will stick in his memory. So maybe to wrap up this. Okay.
Increase that number a little bit.
For visa purposes.
So I would increase that number from 6 months. You want to be looking a year and a half. Then you will get more options. You have to realize PIs, they have to raise funding for you. Unless you come in with your own grants, then the 6 month period is enough time. But usually you can't apply for fellowships and get the funding in 6 months. And so you have to, if you can, I would advise to plan a year and a half in advance. It helps both you potentially identifying fellowships that you can apply for, but also in case you're not able to get a fellowship, and the PI can have enough time to raise funding. So I think that's really, the time is really important there.
completely agree with Peter, because if you've got enough time, then you could even look at the fellowships you can apply to together. So in the end, you're putting in a much stronger application, and we're able to support and give the experience. And it's different for different institutions, but a lot of institutions, you only have a very short advertising period. We get very short notice when that funding actually comes through, but a lot of us know what we've applied for, and for some of these, we also know whether we've got a reasonable chance or not that it's going to get through. So then you also say, okay, we haven't got it now, but in 6 months, this position will most likely be coming, and then you can already bear the candidates in mind. So that when the position's there, you've actually got pre-warning, you've been able to either formulate your application early and you can get it in, but it does take a long time to get these funding, and we're not always able to advertise. And we don't usually have positions just lying around that haven't been filled.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot. If there's not other comment, question. Okay.
There is one. Oh, Marvin is there. Perfect.
Oh, hi. I just wanted to ask, not sure if it's appropriate, but what about internship? Is it kind of worth doing, or if it is, what's the best way to go about it?
Well, to add my experience, internship is always a good thing to do, I think, especially if you can find funding for it by yourself, because it makes. I've been to many internships in my PhD, and I usually found some source of money or funding to go there, and which made my doors open to almost any lab, basically, because you come there with your idea and your funding, and again it increased this. Network and the connections to that lab, where if again I have open doors sometimes even to go for the next step in my career, so I would definitely recommend it. But if you have some more, okay. So if you have some more questions, we can leave it for the discussions and we will move on. So just to wrap up this second session, so some final statements for the CVs and resumes and cover letters. So. As we already said, it's just to wrap up. So be consistent, structure all the sections, and do the chronological order. Put your name, for example, on each of the pages, and these typical recommendations. And definitely don't use personal pronouns like I helped and etc. And don't use templates. Make it a little bit more personal, because when, for example, the employer is receiving 10 same documents, only with different information, it can be a little bit boring, let's say. Convert it to a standard format. PDF is the best, we would recommend. And always do this last spell check, because that's the thing that kind of can a little bit ruin the view of the document itself. Okay, here we have another part of the questions, but I think we can leave it for the discussion, because we are moving towards our time for discussions.
I just wanted to add a comment. There was a saying, don't use I helped and stuff like that. If you're going to write a narrative CV in Europe, you're usually encouraged to say what you did specifically and not we as a team, whereas in the States you would use we for everything. So it's very no? We were always encouraged, but it also depends on your PI and their writing style. So I think this is a bit open for interpretation.
If it's an individual thing, it should be I.
Yeah.
But also clear where the I has been a we.
Yeah. You should not also overestimate yourself, and that was meant in that sense.
Okay, thanks. So here also, you're asking yourself, so how can I improve my chances at a good career in metabolomics, and how to secure my next career step? And we have some resources for you. So some good resources for the early career researchers in metabolomics. Again, as we said, we will provide resources for you, which you can scan now or later, or you have already did. And these are data analysis courses and cell resources, some metabolomics courses, and for example, some resources and tools to helping you to build your CV, which you can find under the links. The next thing that could really help you, and Toma already mentioned it, is the mentorship. So maybe I can just briefly ask if some of you have ever been in a mentorship program, or you have your own mentor. Okay, so we have few hands up. It's not that It's not that typical here, but I think it's becoming much more and more frequent now, because mentorship can help you with solving problems, and because your mentor also have this better, larger network usually, can help you with find some good job opportunities and new collaborations, and sometimes boosting your self-confidence, which is great. And we have already some mentorship programs already established, so you can check out the females in mass spectrometry mentorship program, the WUMIX and Metabolomics mentorship program, or for example step-bystep, and definitely check them out if you want to use mentorship and to help you with your career or to learn more. Also, what you can do is joining the EMN, join our group, and to learn a lot of skills, of course, from the soft skills to hard skills. And the first thing you should do is to join our or follow us on our social media, where we post a lot of information and a lot of resources. Also, there will be again opportunities to join us in the committee in the future. You can talk to us at the EMN booth to learn more, or to chat with us. But as I said, following us on the social media is the first step, because we provide a lot of resources for the EMN. For example, webinars on metabolomics. I will just ask if who of you have attended at least one of our webinar? Yes, that's good, because we work hard on those, and our experts are also, we thank them a lot for attending and giving us these webinars. And also all of these webinars are recorded and are available on the Metabolomics Society website. So if you missed some of those and you are interested in, check them out. We also support and help to organize networking events. And as Silvia already mentioned, we have this EMN Travel Bursary Award. Also, some of you received to attend this conference. So this is for the EMN. And now, actually, we are at the end of the second section. So if you have any questions, you can ask now, and we will also switch probably.
Yeah, Simone is going to introduce our speakers, who already introduced themselves, but now we're going to do it officially. We're going to do that one.
Well, first, can I get another round of applause for our amazing speakers? They did an amazing job. So our panelists were very eager to talk, so I'm very excited. Basically, I will have to do no work, I feel. So I will invite them on stage. If you can please sit here. And I'll just keep the introduction very short, because probably most of them need no introduction. Just to tell them where they are from. So as we were mentioning before, maybe you can already contact them to go work for them next year. So let's start with Professor Emma Szymanski, that she's based in Luxembourg. She's the head of the environmental cheminformatics at the Luxembourg Center of the System Biomedicine. She is very involved in the research that combine cheminformatics and computational mass spectrometry approaches to elucidate unknowns in complex samples. So primarily on targeted screening in relation to environmental causes of disease. Then we have Natasha Yalorud, that she works at Metabolome. She's a field metabolomics scientist. She provides scientific counsel for metabolomics application in biopharma academic sectors. I had the pleasure to meet Natasha as a postdoc at Imperial College, and now she moved on. And she also received, she served as a Marie Curie postdoctoral fellow in Cyprus. Then from Brazil, we have Professor Ian Castro Gamboa, working at the Chemistry Institute of São Paulo State University. Its research is interested in discovering bioactive metabolites from Brazilian plants and microorganisms using both NMR and mass spectrometry methods. We have Tomasz Pruskal, that is based in Prague. He's a junior group leader at the Institute of Organic Chemistry and Biochemistry. Probably you know him very well as a co-founder of MZIO, the company that now is behind MZMine, that most of us use for feature extraction. And finally, we have my boss, Professor Peter Dostin from UC San Diego. He's a professor at the SCAG, School of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Science. Peter's been pioneering mass spectrometry methods to work on all kind of chemical ecosystem and crosstalking between the host organisms and microbes. I was very surprised not to see any mention of bile acids in your bio, but Peter is obsessed also with bile acids. So it will be a very open format discussion. So we will a lot of questions actually that we had prepared have already been discussed, and we are very pleased of this because I feel like there was a lot of interaction. So I will mostly ask questions to our panelists, but feel free, anyone in the audience, if you have any question, if you want to interrupt, if you want to say anything, just raise your hand and we'll give you the chance to ask questions or say your opinion.
We have some questions already.
Okay, wow.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for giving a panel. I may have already missed this, but a question for you guys is, how do you have students that need visa sponsorship handle that on their resume or CV? It's a question I get a lot, and I just wondered what you guys would have to say.
Yeah, so the question was about how do they disclose that they need a visa? So, and I think that's a pretty good question. So I built that into the year and a half time frame. From HR perspective, it can take up to 8 months to hire somebody with a visa because we have to do all the paperwork, you have to get all the right information, and so on. So the best way to deal with this is plan early. In industry, it's sometimes slightly different. Some countries will require that you already have a visa. Sometimes the company will need to sponsor it, and if the countries require you to sponsor it, then they also need to, you just need to disclose that. And basically, usually, if you indicate your nationality, that's probably an indication that a visa is needed. It does reduce the chances that you're going to get hired in those particular positions, because sometimes, particularly industries, often will need somebody in the next 2 weeks. So maybe somebody else can add to this.
I can add from the Luxembourg perspective, if you're non-EU, it takes about 3 months to get the visa. And again, as like Peter said, there are some positions we need someone very quickly. There are some positions where we'd actually have more time and we're willing to wait. So again, plan early. If we know early enough that you're interested, then you can already make a start.
And I just wanted to comment that within the EU, there is an organization called ECRs that helps researchers with mobility, and they also help get visas to people from outside of the EU when they're moving into the EU. We have had great experience with them. Basically, our institute doesn't have to care about anything. They lead the applicants through the process. They get them the visa. They help them, to come from the airport to the institute. They're super helpful. So that might be useful for someone.
Just to add to that, I know in research it's meant to always be about the individual, but sometimes the family situation can also change that. So if the husband has a permanent job in Luxembourg, it's much easier for the wife to get the visa for something at the university. Whereas if you're really coming in, then it takes longer. So it can be quite an individual thing, and be transparent about it, because then we can consider that in the hiring process.
There was another question here, if you are...
First of all, thank you for being available in the panel. It's more so a combination of a comment and a question. So I feel like, especially in the early stages of our career, we are struggling a bit, oftentimes, with presenting our first mentorship and supervising experiences. And maybe not all of our students may have won any awards or so. So my take on that is that you definitely can present that eventually your project, your master thesis, bachelor thesis, ended up in a publication. And maybe the name of the student is on the publication itself as well, which also is a good sign of mentorship if you can give credit. So my question with that regard is, how can we present that in a good way? And is it an important factor for you that an employee is a good supervisor?
I think listing any mentorship or supervisory experience you have in your CV or resume with the, as detailed as it gets, basically, as much detail as you can provide about what you've done. Have you supervised bachelor students, master students for their theses, for lab work, and sort of just, present what you've already done. And that will be a good enough indicator to show that you're able in transferring knowledge, in having this ability to manage your time, because supervising students does take quite a bit of your time. So it's not just a matter of presenting it as it's a tick box that you have to put on your CV, but it could be a very good indicator of many different other soft skills or transferable skills.
Yeah, in the Brazilian perspective, we have a database of curricula that the students, even students from high school, they just put the little things that they do in science. So you have built up this, and if you, for example, ask for a scholarship, our system is a little bit different from the colleagues, of course, but you have all this experience. Everything counts, this is very important. So that's it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's also clear when we're assessing, if you've just graduated yourself from your master's, we're not going to expect you to have supervised a PhD student. So it's like, it might look like it's trivial, but, having nothing on your CV looks worse than having at least something. So if you've got something you think is worth mentioning, put it on there, because then you'll notice in a few years' time you gain that experience, those entries will get better and better. And I mean, my CV from 20 years ago looks super boring. And if you look at it now, it's pages long. But that comes with time. So if there's something to highlight, highlight it. It's better than having nothing at all. And you can also, in reflecting on your CV, see where the gap is, where you don't have anything. Target that proactively. They've mentioned here, get actively involved in a society. This is already showing, okay, you're proactive, you're searching to improve your network. That's how you do it.
Yeah, and so if you don't have formal mentorship experience, there are always small, little experiences that you do have. You may have helped somebody else train and you taught them on how to run that LCMS run, or you train them in some data analysis. That is mentorship. It's real mentorship, and you can highlight some of those things. In addition to these awesome projects that I did that I'm so excited about, you can also highlight, in addition, I helped maintain the instrumentation, and I mentored I trained other people on how to do this. These are key parts of the mentoring experience that exists.
We have some more questions, so I'm gonna go around to other people.
Hi, first of all, I would like to thank the panelists for their time. I have a question about letter of recommendations. So how many, like in your specific countries, how many letter of recommendations do you require for a postdoc position? So especially as a PhD student, we'll have a PI listed as one of the recommendations, but do you require other people to provide recommendation from another perspective, previous mentors, your master's guide, and something like that? Thank you.
I was going to say, usually we just ask for people to provide contact details and reach out to them. I have had people proactively provide a recommendation letter in advance, and this really helps if you get if someone has given you just a general letter of recommendation and you include that with your application, and it's a really good one. This has helped me pick out some candidates. The problem with these generic letters of recommendation is we don't want to be writing individual ones for every single application. Like, to support you, we're always, like, if you've given us, like, if someone of mine or someone I know has asked me to be a recommendation, I'm happy to do it. I can give a generic letter, or if they really need it per application, you can do it, but if this is then for hundreds of people, this is not feasible. But you can write these very good general ones. More specific is good. What is also good for us as PIs, if we're going to recommend people, like, give your PI the heads up. And especially if it's something you really care about, if that's that job you really, really want, even just a quick heads up, like, I've applied for this job, I've put your name down, it would be really good if you can support me, then that really helps, because it's like Thomas has said, we're dealing with hundreds of emails of applications, and we're happy to help make you stand out, but you have to help us make you stand out, as we see.
I just wanted to comment that this is also very case by case, right? I mean, if I get an application from someone that previously interacted with my colleagues, I can just ask them informally. I don't even need a letter of recommendation. Yeah. But for example, when I was a postdoc in the US, I was applying for this Helen Hay Whitney fellowship, which is like a fairly competitive postdoc fellowship. And I needed 5 letters of recommendation for that. And of course, those had to come from different institutions, people I collaborated with and so on. So it can be sometimes a bit challenging to fulfill the requirements.
And if I can make an anecdote to that, so I also had something that I really, really needed to get. And yes, I had to have formal letters of recommendation from my colleagues. And then someone said, oh, you should apply for this and this award. And I needed recommendations. And I was like, okay, but I need this proposal, and this award is just an extra thing. So I prioritized the proposal. I didn't even apply for this award with the letters of recommendation because, getting funding for my group was more important than these other things. So at some point, you also have to prioritize. We prioritize for us as well. But
yeah, so letter of recommendation is also dependent on the position. Different PIs will operate their lab differently. Some people really like to have all the letters of recommendations. I personally don't care. Occasionally I will ask for it, but if anything, I will call the PI up and say, have a brief chat. I will learn way more than the letter of recommendation. But if you're going to, let's say you're a postdoc and you're going to apply for faculty positions, depending on the application, some will require 3, some will require 5. And so you just need to make sure that you network properly so that there are enough people that can write your letter of recommendation for you when you need it.
Also, just a tip, make sure you have a relatively diverse set of names, like even if you're just suggesting names, 3 people from the same institute is not a good thing, so that's where the networking comes in. Make sure you've got a range of people who can really, someone who's close and knows you, maybe someone who's you've worked with on an internship, getting back to the person who asked about the internships. That's really important, showing a diversity of experience.
We have another question here.
I would like to actually make one interesting comment that people probably haven't thought about and that is, if you ask somebody to write a letter of recommendation, you can proactively write a draft one. That will really help. I know I submit probably 2,000 a year, and so when you're starting to look at that scale, if I were to have to write 3 hours per letter, I wouldn't be able to do my job. And so just think about it, how you can minimize the impact of that request on somebody. Other ways to do it is you can, when you ask for somebody for a letter of recommendation, just say, hey, I'm also willing to write a draft letter that you could edit. That's the other way to do it. But I like the ones that are really proactive, and those are generally the people that also end up getting positions. That's at least my purview. There's another question right there.
I was going to say, I'm going to second that though, like having a draft and then editing it so that you're actually saying your opinion. I mean, it's clear we don't just send the draft off and sign it, but that is really, really, really helpful. And then we can tailor it, and then it's a request that you can actually submit. And I like the fact that they said CV in portable format, so of course we need an editable document, but if I'm reading it on my phone, I need to download it in PDF so I can read it and even think about it, things like that. So.
Thank you. There's somebody here waiting for 10 minutes, so I would like to give them the opportunity. You guys are very popular, so you're probably going to get more questions after you leave this room, but I'm trying to give more people...
I'm going to switch gears a bit, though. You mentioned that it's nice to start talking to potential PIs 6 months in advance, or maybe a year. More, a year. Let's put it a year. Because the last year of the PhD is well known for the big crisis, right? I want to stay in academia. I want to go to industry. What do I want to do? The big last year PhD crisis. How do you deal with prospective postdocs or prospective people entering the lab, but also kind of in that way of, since initiating a talk with you until actually getting there, have changed their minds or, are still doubting? Because that's also one of the things, at least for me, and I see colleagues doing the same, that when they don't want to talk to a PI unless they're sure of it. But the last year of PhDs, they're not sure of anything. I mean, it's a bit tricky for me when I hear 1 year in advance, you need to start looking about it. Yeah, how do you go? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, this is, we have felt that, everyone here. And it's very complicated, as you know. I will talk about the Brazilian experience, of course, but we have like a kind of different system. We deal with the scholarships, you know that as well, because you're Brazilian. And now they are very competitive, so you have to do it 18 months in advance, and you are writing your thesis, and you're scared, and you don't know where you're going to go, or if you're going to have the funding. But it's organization and communication. I think communication is key. You can talk to the PI in advance and say, I have interest in joining your group, what can I do? Is there some scholarship that we can put, into the Brazilian government? I know it's hard, but that's the way. I don't see it differently.
Be transparent. If you don't know where you're going, make that clear. Because then this is also part of the conversation, and part of the conversation you can see, okay, can we support you anyway? Are you interested in a postdoc, just some more experience to help you decide? If you're, like I have a PhD student, she already is clear. She wants to be on an academic track, and you can plan that differently because she knows where she's going, and you can basically open up the opportunities if you're not sure. Then you support a diversity of opportunities, and so you're actually getting the experience to help you decide. So for me, it's like, be transparent about your insecurities or exactly what you want, and then we can also help you and see. That's where, like in the letter, it's also important to know as much as we can about the specifics, because then you see if it's a match or not. Some positions are right on track, some positions are flexible and give you a bit more. And that depends also a lot on the funding we've got, whether we're able to offer flexibility or whether it's like, no, this one is really tight. So it's part of the inputs for me in the decision.
Just for the industry perspective, if you know you're interested in transitioning away from academia into a position in industry, it's never too early to start looking at what's out there, what kind of roles are available, what kind of skill sets the potential employers are looking for, and use that time you have prior to finishing your PhD to maybe work on some skills that you might be missing or something that is super critical to you getting that industry position that you really want. Or just, because coming out of academia, you're not always familiar with how industry is constructed in a way, what kind of departments constitute a certain corporation. So it's also important to get to know what kind of positions are available out there and use that time to help you, find your best sort of fit there.
And I just wanted to comment, if you feel some doubt whether you should go for academic path or another path, you're not unique. I mean, everybody in academia is dealing with this, like, should we still be in academia or not, at any career stage. So this is perfectly normal. It's good to talk about it, make a network, again, back to the networking, make a network of people at various career stages that can give you advice, opinions, build your career along as you get all this advice. It really helps. And also talking about the timing, like 1 year ahead or 1.5 years ahead, there's always a bit of a balance, right? Because maybe at that point you don't have your paper published yet, right? And then if you have your paper published, your application will look stronger. But then it might be too late, to apply for the fellowship and blah, blah, blah. It's always a balance of many factors. Again, it helps to talk about it with your peers, your potential supervisors, your past supervisors. We're not alone.
New questions? Yeah, there is one more, but yeah, sure. No, I was just looking if there was anyone. Here.
Right. Thank you for the panel. So I just start my job as in academia, and I would like to ask your experience. How would you pick out an excellent candidate, like PhD candidate or master? Is there any red flag?
Yeah, if I get an application that has "Dear Sir," then you're out.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think this is a really good question because it's really a question about the match, the right match. Because if the match is incompatible between your work style and the PI and the student or postdoc that you're recruiting, both are going to be miserable. And so you really, certainly "Dear Sir" is a good exclusion criteria. But it's a dialogue. you learn, you want to get to learn to know each other a little bit and to see, would you thrive in that particular lab? And if the answer, let's say the PI has you do many projects and they force you to, let's say, work 80 hours a week, if that doesn't work with your work style, no, don't join it. If you have fun hobbies and you like to go mountain biking, rock climbing, and the PI has those kind of hobbies, I'm looking at myself. That's a start of a dialogue that it's okay to have things outside of the lab. You need to think, since you're just starting your career, you need to find out, okay, what kind of people do I want in my laboratory? Again, if people feel like they fit with your work style, they're going to be very happy and they love coming in and they do magic things. When it's just a drag for them to come in, you can't get anything done. And so it's a dialogue that you need to have with the people that you're trying to hire, and with enough interactions, hopefully you'll begin to understand, yes, I can really work with this person.
And there are some positions as well where you want the lab that'll just help you get on your career and focus completely and have none of the external activities, and this is also okay. So at least within LCSB we have groups that are very different in that way. And even when we were interviewing for our current positions, probably we've all got similar stories, but you also consider a range of institutes, and there are some that I walked in and I was like, okay, I could never work there. You get that feeling straight away. And that's where I think this point came up earlier, getting the opportunity to visit a lab in person or getting to know the people, or at least getting to know the people who work there, then you really get the idea of how it works and is that going to work for you. It's really important.
I want to comment, and you are all very well established professor, right? You are receiving thousands of emails per month probably. But you have been young investigator once, right? Have you ever been in a position where you had to look for a new employee? Can you tell us about your experience in that? Who was there when you were building your career? Like, how did you find them? Like, where the young people should be to meet the young investigators?
I'm not sure if I have an answer to that, but I just want to say that this is really tough. I mean, it goes back to your question, right? Because when you're starting the lab, that means you haven't really built a reputation yet, right? But at the same time, you really need some people to start because somebody has to do the research, right? And so it's really tough to attract and to select the right people because you haven't had an opportunity to have internships in your lab before and basically have to start from scratch. It's a very difficult period. Yeah, after a couple of years, it gets much better.
I was going to say you'll be surprised how difficult it is for a lot of very established people. So there are people, at least in the environmental world, who are extraordinarily well known who don't have a career path set out. I was faced, 70 before we came to Luxembourg. We were literally at the state where we did not know what country we would be living in and where my son would be going to school when we were transitioning from Switzerland to Luxembourg. And that's, as a parent, an extraordinarily bizarre situation to be in. So it's not just a career choice, it's also where can you actually establish a family, make sure your child can go to school, your husband also has a job and all of that. So it might look like on paper that everything has been extremely easy, it was not. And that it gets back to Peter's thing. My current position was 18 months in the planning. We visited a lot of places, we had to really balance what worked for all of us as a family. And then it's like if you try to tell these stories, people are like, why are you putting your husband in the story? It's like, okay, we're 3 people, and of course you have to plan for all of you. It's not just for you. It's like, in a way, if you're bringing someone with you, then you have to make sure it's something that works for the whole family. And this is also something is part of the dialogue that I have with my people as well.
Yeah, it's complicated. I was born in Costa Rica, so I'm Brazilian by heart, but not by birth. And I did a part of my PhD in the US and then came to Brazil and finished it. And I wanted to stay in Brazil. And there's this issue of the visa, And it was crucial. I was finishing my PhD. I needed to stay as a postdoc, so I needed to find a scholarship. This was not easy. Otherwise, I'll have to return to Costa Rica. And it's a lot of pressure. I mean, the colleague here is telling us about a puzzle of, husband and kids, and I didn't have that. But it's complicated. Well. Yeah, but it's something about passion, and to set your dreams. It's complicated and some kind of magic, sometimes the things just flow, the scholarship, got there, and I stayed, I defended my PhD, and the scholarship was already approved, so I was, and then, started the postdoctoral position, 2 years only. If I didn't have any work, I will have to return to Costa Rica, and then there was this professor position that you have in Brazil is very medieval and complicated. You have to do all these concourse and teach and give a lot of things different from the States, and I guess Europe in some countries, and everything just flow, But it's a risk. Everything is a risk, and it's a lot of anguish. I mean, but at the end, everything turns out fine if you have your heart set in the right position.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like you said, it kind of flows, but if you're waiting for things to fall from heaven, they won't. You have to paddle with the flow to make sure it flows. So, and this is where it's important that you know your own boundary conditions. I have some people that are restricted to the location. Then it's like, okay, if we work with those boundary conditions, you can keep going and make the best career within that. And some people are total freedom. Sometimes actually the total freedom is worse, because then you can't decide. So actually deciding and making that flow happen is the key.
Just the last thing, that it's kind of complicated in the sense of how to make it done, how to do it really, and I don't know. Sometimes you have a lot of pressure, and it's complicated. I mean, it's complicated, but the things flow, Yeah. You have to know what you want. That's it.
Yeah, I think knowing what you want is really important, and so what you want to do is keep trying. Its persistence does pay off. Occasionally, it's not a direct linear path. You may have to settle for something that's maybe slightly less than what you were hoping for. But if you keep pushing at it, you will get where you want to go. It's really persistence. So just keep that in mind. I could tell a lot about struggles that I've had with raising funds, all these kind of things. And getting a group off the ground, or even applying to positions. I think every PI has their own story of how they got where they got, and it's not always a linear thing, but you'll get there if you keep trying. If you don't try, then you already have a no. But if you keep trying, you may get a yes.
And another thing is that I was sitting there, listening to you guys talking about all this stuff, and I was wondering, I defended my PhD in 2000, and the dynamics of of all the community changed. We have all this networking. We didn't have that. Email was something like, okay, let's do it, or fax machine. But everything changed. You have all these little gadgets that you can contact. You can make a call via WhatsApp or do a Zoom conference. I mean, in my time, that was impossible. So you have to write a letter or send an email and just wait and wait and wait. It was terrible,
There's a question here.
Yeah, so I wanted to add it to his question about starting up a lab. One of my questions to you guys is, do you have a lab expectations document or something like that? Because, one of the biggest fears in grad school, right, is the fear of the unknown. Like, you don't know exactly what's expected, and you don't know where you're going to go or what you're going to do. So how do you combat that maybe with a lab expectations document?
I used to have one, and I don't know where it went. But I think it's a good thing for a lab to do. But the question is, are they going to take the time to create one? Young PIs, they may have a little bit more time to create one. I guess I could find it again, but I haven't given it to anybody or posted it anywhere because I tend to recruit based on enthusiasm and their passion for science, and then the second part I tend to recruit on is how well do they get along with the team members when they interview. If there's any inclination that that's an issue, I will not recruit them. But a lab document for an incoming person would be nice to read, right? So I'm in agreement with you. I used to have one, don't have one anymore, but I would recommend any new PI to create one.
Since we are talking about excitement, just one word from each of you. What's the most important soft skill that you are looking the new employee? And then I will switch gear. I saw there was a lot of debate before, like communication or expertise. Are you looking for something specifically or no?
I particularly like people that read something besides science. For me, this is important, to talk not only... In Brazil, we like to discuss science in a little square table, drinking beer or caipirinha. And this is where we discuss our great ideas. But I like to talk, I like the candidate to have another side, not only science, like talk a little bit about politics, about history, For me, this is important, the humanity thing, Communication, sincerity, and also this driving force for me is a must.
I think it really depends on the situation and the PI. For me, having someone with strong writing skills is maybe not so important because this is something I'm good at and I'm happy to teach people. But for me, it's more than just one skill. It's like if there's someone who's otherwise very good, has all of the skills, and there's one or two things missing, that's not an issue. If there's someone with like major gaps in too many areas that it's not feasible, then... So for me, it's more a whole package thing. I wouldn't say there's one particular.
So I think every person is a very complex package of many different skills, and we evaluate the person as a whole, right? So it's hard to pick like one skill that you're looking for because you're looking for all of them to some extent. But yeah, I totally agree that communication is important. What Peter said, the enthusiasm and excitement is also very important. Being open-minded and kind of open to discussing new ideas is also very important for me, for example. So. It's not like one thing that rules them all.
I agree. I mean, definitely when hiring or when welcoming new people in a team, we definitely want to see several different aspects of their skills, but it's mostly their whole personality. What is really important when we welcome new people is just to sort of see that willingness to learn and that can-do attitude. So when you're open and adaptable, I would say that is already a huge step towards succeeding in a position.
Yeah, I like the comment that you just made, the can-do attitude, in a very positive way. There's one way you can look at science and say, well, this cannot be done because of X, Y, Z. Or we can say, okay, let's figure it out. Let's try it. Exactly, this cannot be done yet. I love that kind of an approach. I love people who challenge me. I'm often wrong. Actually, most PIs are wrong all the time. So being able to challenge, but in a very positive way, because we are all here to learn from each other. And if you have a right group like that, and you can learn from each other, fun things start to happen.
Great. So let's circle back, because before we saw that our audience, Alf was interested in industry and Alf was interested in academia. We have been discussing a lot of academia. So maybe we can switch in industry, since we have Peter here that is founder of multiple companies. We have Tomáš that also recently established MZ.io. Can you tell us more about what you think are pro and cons working in startups? What are the problems that you face? What do you think it's like exciting also pursuing science through startups and not just through academia?
Natasha, you can also talk about industry work. I haven't worked in a startup. So.
It is a very, very different environment. Like, I've only been in the corporate world for like 18 months now, so I've made an idea about how things work. It's definitely extremely different than academia. I don't know if it pertains to startups, but in the corporate world, you need to perform, and there's a lot of pressure and demand from leadership teams and so on, which automatically means that, oh, okay, you do have a permanent contract and stuff, but you can always get kicked out in a day. And the other thing that's pretty challenging is that, you know, for not a startup, but companies that tend to be combined by several different departments. You've got your sales, your marketing, your corporate development, your business development, and so on. So you need to learn how you speak to all these different people in order to get that unified message at the end of the day and help the company create the right products to the right clients, deliver them to the right clients, and so on. So these are the two things that I would say, you know, have sort of been a surprise or, you know, a big learning curve for me in this like year and a half.
So I don't know if I ever said it to you guys, but I actually had 3 years of working experience before I went back to do my PhD into academia. So it's a long time ago now, but I was a consultant, and this is, yes, a completely different world. And after I saw my boss go through a burnout with all of the pressure he was in, it's like, yes, academia is pressure, but it's a different kind of pressure. So there's not like if you think academia is too stressful and too pressured and you go to industry and things will be better, it really depends on where you go. So again, this is finding the match for you and your personality and where you want to go. You know, if you like doing all of these kind of corporate marketing things and selling things and working for people and not having necessarily the freedom, then maybe this is the right place for you. Just go there, go through the interviews and see if it works for you. I've had someone who really wants to go into industry, and then she's gone through the interviews, like she hasn't found her match yet. That's okay, then she's just keeping going through more interviews. But it can be a very different world. What I have noticed is a lot of people are super fixed on this permanent position. I gave up a permanent position to go do a PhD. I don't necessarily regret it. It was awful not necessarily having. I've only been permanent for a very short time, and yes, this insecurity is a problem. But like you said, permanent position, you can be kicked out anytime, so permanent is not permanent. My husband's permanent residency for Australia was not permanent either. 5 years it was gone. So, you know, even if you think that industry and that permanent position is the essential thing, life is more than that.
Yeah, and in the end, it doesn't matter whether you're in academia or in industry. Your goal is to create a product, and so this is also true in academia. Your product is knowledge, and you need to be able to disseminate that knowledge. In industry, your company defines generally your product. Unless you're in charge, then you define the company's product. So your science will be focused around that. Now, at the same time, industry can be extremely exciting in terms of the science, and I think we underestimate how amazing the science is in industry, in many industry places. But again, it needs to fit your personality. Some people do better in industry when they do sort of similar tasks every day. They know they have a 9 to 5 schedule. They have kids at home. Some people just work better in a scenario where it's really regimented. There are also lots of positions in industry where it's not regimented. You can come in at 4 o'clock in the middle of the night if you want. You basically have goals, and you need to achieve those goals in the time that is allotted to you. If you can do that in 10 hours in the week, great. If it takes you 80 hours a week, great. Your goal is to deliver. And that can create a lot of stress at times. But that's no different compared to academia. If you have a grant deadline, I was crazy enough to go for a grant 3 weeks ago. I decided this, and I wrote 280 pages in 2 weeks. So, yeah, clearly that wasn't going to be a 10-hour work hour a week. In startups or even large companies, they can be celebrated, the successes on Friday, and all of a sudden lay people off on Monday. And that's just the reality of it. In academia, that doesn't happen as quickly if you are in a faculty position and you have tenure. But other positions, if it's dependent on grant funding, I've seen PIs do it. And they all of a sudden let somebody know, oh, you won't have a job next week. They didn't communicate. So pick your PIs very well that are good at communicating and their funding status and they're willing to share, because otherwise you may also get into that scenario. Startups can be really high pressure and in some cases, but it doesn't have to be all the time. If you're some startups are always short on money. And they basically don't have any salary, and you will know that 2 weeks out from now. And if they don't raise funding in the next 2 weeks, you know that you're out. But at the same time, particularly early, people who join startups early, if the startup is successful, you probably have shares in the company, and there's potential for major rewards at the end. So again, find what fits your personality, how much risk you're willing to take, and if that fits with your lifestyle, your family's lifestyle, those are all considerations you have to take.
So I just had one last question because we need to start wrapping up. Before I say that, please stay for a picture and to get your little treat from us. And thank you once again for being here. You mentioned a little bit about money. I think I love academia and I love, I've never considered going to industry, but one of the parts about academia is also finding that money and constantly writing grants. And I think a lot of people, I don't know if that resonates, but for me, that was a pretty big, scary part of academia, of constantly trying to get money and then keep people employed, because then you're the one that has to find money for your people. So if you could just, like, in a few short sentences, like, say how you're dealing with that stress, because, like, that would be really nice. Thanks.
Yeah, my biggest fear as a PI is indeed that I can't raise enough money. My lab is in a fortunate position that we have some backup money that we always save in case there's a rainy day that happens. But I know a lot of PIs are not that lucky. And for me, the way I do it is just I keep writing grants. I keep submitting grants, and I will keep submitting grants. So that's my approach. There's some PIs that just rely on one grant. It's, to me, too dangerous for people. If you're responsible for their family's livelihood, to me that's too dangerous as a PI, and I wouldn't. I'll try anything within my power to make sure that there's funding to support them. Now, can I guarantee it? No. But that's something to consider. In industry, that is, you still have to produce products. If you're not going to produce products that the company needs, you're also not going to keep your job. And they can make that decision very quickly. So you just need to make sure, keep an eye out for the products that you need to create, so that you can keep your job as well as the people that work with you on your team. Because if you are in industry, if you're part of the team that leads it, it may actually, if your team is not doing a good job, the whole team may be gone.
Okay. Unfortunately, time is over. So, and I'm a very strict moderator, so this is it. Can I have a round of applause for our panelists? Please find them around the conference. Now they are more, I think you will find them more approachable. They are not scary big professor. You can go talk with them, find a job for next year. Yes, Thomas has open position. Don't write just one sentence, please. Now you know. Or maybe just write it as a joke. Maybe it will work. So I guess this is it. We will give some presents, right, to our panelists.
not there, and Ian.
Yeah. And thanks everyone for attending. Please find us on social media, find us around the conference so we can chat with you. And we hope that you're going to have a very pleasant time here at the conference with us. Okay.